would say like the final round in terms of our recruiting process. So after submitting your resume, it's reviewed by recruiters, the recruitment team, along with office personnel for the offices that you raise your hand to be selected by, will then reach out and invite you to interview. And during that interview, you'll participate in both a personal experience interview. So think about it as like your behavioral interview. Tell me about a time. And then the case interview, I like to say it's kind of like a test run as if you were a business analyst, what you would experience. And we'll talk a little bit more about the interview process as well, too. Okay, so as I mentioned, why does a resume matter? Your resume is really our first peek and our introduction into who you are and why you might be a great fit for the firm. So recruiters, once you submit your application, they're going to take a look at your profile, starting with your resume. I'll be honest, folks, and this is insider, like, letting you know, we do not read cover letters. So I wouldn't recommend you spending an enormous or copious amount of time crafting one. We know that you're excited about the opportunity to join the firm because you took the precious time out of your schedules, which I'm sure are jam-packed, to even apply to the role. So you don't need to spend additional time writing a cover letter telling us about how excited you are. We really just want to get to know you through your resume. And so because the resume is the first opportunity you have to say like, hey, here's me. Here's why I think I'd be a great fit for the firm. It's important that we spend the most amount of time when thinking about applying to firm on making sure that resume is in tip-top shape. So what does that look like? Well, when recruiters are reviewing resumes, there's a few things that we're looking for. Ultimately, these skills that you see shown here are skills that our consultants use on a daily basis in terms of being successful in their roles. So we're looking for some of that proven ability to do some of these things in your resume, such as problem-solving skills. Tell us about times when, you've streamlined a process or made something better. So how in your internship with nonprofit organization ABC, how have you left that place better than you found it? Problem solving, proven leadership. Tell us about some of the extracurricular activities that you might be involved in on campus and how you've been able to take leadership roles within those organizations. For some of my rising sophomores, totally understand, you just got to college, you're only 2 semesters in. So when we talk about proven leadership, that can certainly be things that you've done in your later years of high school, or even leadership roles that you've taken on that may not necessarily come with the title of leader, but maybe you led your group project team. Tell us about that. Entrepreneurial drive. So entrepreneurial drive does not mean that, you went and started, a tech startup and you're on like round 1 of seed funding. That's not what we mean by entrepreneurial drive. Entrepreneurial drive is you saw an opportunity and you proactively went after it. So one example that a business analyst spoke to was she was a new member of the Student Government Association at her school. The role let's say her predecessor was no longer on campus, and there wasn't really like a great transition guide for getting ramped up to speed for how she had to serve in her capacity on Student Government Association. So she created a onboarding orientation for new SGA members. Entrepreneurial drive. She saw an opportunity and proactively did something to remedy it or go after it. All of these things, again, as we're looking through your resume, we're really looking at the impact that you've had. We don't care about I shouldn't say we don't care, but the first thing we're looking at isn't like, oh, you had an internship at big, shiny bank on Wall Street. That's great that you did, but if we start to read that experience and we can't say, well, how did they leave the big, shiny bank on Wall Street better than they found it? So what was their impact while they had that internship? It's not, we really want to know the impact, not just the roles. Same with your involvement on campus. It's great that you're, president of the SHEP chapter on your campus. But if you can't tell us about some of the impact that you made while in that role, we don't really know, proven leadership. So make sure that we're focusing on impact, how you left a place better than you found it when speaking to your experience on your resume. So we talked a little bit about some of these things listed here, but again, we really want to see that you as a student have had a holistic experience. So certainly if you are an RA on campus, that's great stuff to put on your resume. If you had a work study, we also want to hear about that. If you are working part-time at a local coffee shop, tell us about that. If you're working part-time at I don't know, Target, or you're a shift manager at Target, tell us about that, because again, we're looking around problem solving skills, entrepreneurial drive, how you've been able to lead teams. And all of those roles that we just mentioned are certainly opportunities for you to speak to those things. I know I used to work in fast food and retail, and it's not an easy job. So you build a lot of skills and a lot of character in doing those roles. So tell us about those on your resume. In addition to any volunteerism that you might be involved in, especially if it's something that you've been doing for over the course of a few years and you have like a sustained relationship or involvement with those organizations, we want to hear about that on your resume too. So we are looking at you holistically as a candidate, not just big shiny internships or big shiny colleges and universities. We really want to know, again, how you've been able to exhibit those skills around problem solving, proven leadership, entrepreneurial drive throughout your time in undergrad. All right, last little thing about resume. We use these 4 C's when thinking through resumes. So a question that recruiters here at Mckinsey get often is like, how long should my resume be? We are not checking for length. That's not one of the screening requirements. But we are looking for these 4 things: that your resume is concise, clear, consistent, and clean. Concise in terms of like being able to take your experience, synthesize it so that I can easily read as a recruiter a bulleted line and be like, oh, wow, that was really impactful. What Lauren was able to do in her role at this nonprofit. So making sure that we're concise, being very clear, and leading with action verbs is important as well. Again, we're getting to know you through this resume. So like take us along the journey, and making sure that we can really understand the impact that you made. Being consistent. So using, like parallel verbiage, and then also making sure that, spacing and alignment is consistent throughout. Just makes it an easier read for the recruiters, and shows that you spent the time to make sure your resume was well organized. And then again, clean. I'd much rather you go to a second page than have 7-point font that I have to zoom in at 200% to read. So keep these things in mind as you're thinking through your resume and drafting your resume. Also, quick plug, and I'll make sure I drop the link in the chat before we log off today, but we'll have a resume workshop also hosted by Hispanic and Latino Network tomorrow from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. If you're available, please feel free to join. We'll be sharing some more tips about how to approach writing your resume. Okay, shifting to the interview. So some of you may have heard of case interviews before, if you're familiar with the process for applying to consulting firms. Some things to know about what's evaluated during the case interview portion of your interview. One, we are not necessarily looking for you to land, say if there's a math question or a question that requires some type of quantitative analysis. We are looking really to see how you approach the problem, not so much if you land on the right answers. There's plenty of calculators and nice software and applications to do calculations here at McKinsey. But what we're looking for and why we hire the consultants that we do is because they have a very, let's say, unique or specialized process for approaching problem solving. And so we're thinking about how can you break down, your assessor is evaluating, how do you break down the problem to really understand what it is we're trying to solve? They're also looking at how you can take the information given during the case interview and kind of connect the dots to figure out, okay, what do we need? What's the right information or relevant information to solve the problem? And then, of course, quantitative analysis. So if you're given numbers or if you're given a chart, how do you take that information and really get to the so what that's going to help you solve the problem? As I mentioned, we're not looking, no one's going to like give you a brain teaser, like how many marbles can fit in like a jet plane or something like that. No one's going to you're not going to get a question like that in a case interview. You don't necessarily have to memorize frameworks in order to be successful in our case interview, because a lot of what you're using is your ability to problem solve and think through the most rational way to solve a problem. So you don't have to know all the frameworks listed in case in point in order to do well in the interview. Additionally, you do not have to have any prior industry knowledge in order to do well in the case interview. Of course, if you have some, it never hurts. But if your case interview is around, I don't know, gas and oil, you do not have to be an expert in the gas and oil industry in order to do well in the case interview. So you don't have to spend time, committing to memory all the laws of healthcare in order to do well in a case interview. All right. And final reminder, the case interview certainly is meant to be a conversation between you and your assessor. I always encourage folks to think of this, if you're thinking of this as an exam, you're going to get credit for showing your work, meaning it's okay to like talk out loud and let your interviewer know, hey, this is what I'm thinking as I'm approaching this problem. In doing so, you'll actually find that the interviewer can assist you more. Should you be maybe going in the wrong direction on a question, they can kind of help to redirect you. I've spoken with a business analyst who shared, I was really going off the rails on a quantitative question, but because I was thinking out loud and talking my interviewer through my process, they were able to redirect me and get me back on the right track. So your interviewer wants you to succeed in the interview. And the best way to do that is to really just consider the interview as a conversation between you and your assessor, and your assessor to a certain extent serves as a thought partner throughout the case interview. Lauren Rowe, anything that you'd like to add, just given your experiences going through the case interview?
I think you covered it great. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think that was super, super comprehensive and definitely true to my experience. And one other tip I would give when it comes to the case interview is exactly, along the same veins. The interviewer is not your adversary. They're really there to support you and engage in dialogue with you. So don't be scared of them and don't be afraid to take your time as well. That was something that advice that I was given that I used and found super helpful. Do not be afraid. If anything, feel free to say, I'm just going to take a minute or two to kind of gather my thoughts and start thinking of a preliminary approach. Because they're going to ask you a question. You're probably going to need a minute to wrap your head around it. So don't be afraid to, be a human and say, I'm going to take a minute and just write down my, a few initial thoughts or, kind of assess the problem and then dive into it. And that is always okay. Remember that it's always completely fine. And your interviewer they want to see you succeed as well. All of this is about creating an environment where you can put your best foot forward, so we can see who you are and what you bring to the firm. So please don't be too intimidated by this whole thing, because it's really all about, at the end of the day, bringing out the best in you.
Awesome. Definitely echo that. but I did want to add, for sure, and I don't know if I've said, I might have already mentioned it, but definitely go to the coaching sessions, or coaching session. You're looking at a guy who, I got turned down from like every consulting club at my school because I didn't know how to case, and I went to one McKinsey casing session, and obviously I'm here now, so it did wonders, I guess. Um, and then definitely easier said than done, but don't freak out. Kind of that echoes what Lauren says, that they're really looking to give you points wherever they can. And honestly, if you could just keep a cool head and think, you're just having a conversation with a person trying to figure out the best way to solve a problem here. That's definitely the best approach. So, oh, I see a question. Are mentors available? I don't know if that's meant by like the coaching sessions, but there are a ton available. And your recruiter, oh yes, wonderful. Your recruiter will tell you, or at least my recruiter told me, hey, we have a session coming up at this time, if you want to take it, and I highly recommend it. And I am so glad I went. And if there's more that you want to go to, you can attend multiple, anytime between your case interview and whenever you find out that you have it, right? So yeah.
Great tips. Thank you, Lauren and Raul. A few more things, and I see some questions populating in the chat, so we'll take like a 5-minute Q&A before we move on to the next section. Oh, okay, yes. Our tips for case interviewing. Some of these were mentioned by Lauren and Raul, but it's never too early to start practicing, especially if you know that you're extremely interested in pursuing an opportunity with McKinsey or just with a consulting firm or management consulting firm in general. I always like to say case interviewing, for the majority of us, there might be some outliers out there, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to the gym when you have your body goals. It doesn't happen after one gym session. You gotta get in there and really give it your all. And so if you do that, you'll start to build those muscles that you need to be successful in the case interview. I would not look at case interviewing as like you would a final exam, or at least I was in college, how I looked at final exams, which was, if I start studying like 2 days before, I'll ace it. Not necessarily the case with case interviewing. Also, we have lots of resources, as Raul mentioned, available to you all actually now, in terms of understanding our recruiting process and what you might expect in a case interview. I'll be sure to drop that link in the chat. But on our McKinsey career site, there's practice cases. There's even personal experience interview questions that you could expect to receive during the interview. So if you want to use those to practice, they're available to you. And then finally, I think the best resource for all of you all are each other. Practice with friends, practice with peers, connect with the folks on this call, like on LinkedIn. I know that I spoke with a business analyst who recently joined the firm, and they're like, yeah, I just met somebody on one of the info sessions. We connected on LinkedIn and we practiced casing together. So definitely leverage your peers in order to build that muscle of case interviewing as well. And so let's pause and take maybe about 5 minutes of questions. I see some populating in the chat here. Let's see. We already talked about mentors being available, as well as some other folks you can leverage to help you with case interviewing. Can you provide a quantitative analysis question? Helena, does that mean what you can expect to hear from a quantitative analysis question? Is that what you're asking? Yes. Okay. I will. I wish I could think of quantitative analysis questions off of the top of my head. I cannot, but what I can do is share with you all the link to practice cases that's available on the McKinsey website. I know for sure they have quantitative questions there, both, what insights can you draw from a chart that's provided, as well as like, I'm going to give you some numbers and let me know like what you came up with. So I'm going to drop that link in the chat here, and would definitely encourage you all to check out the practice cases that are available on McKinsey's website. Oops, everyone. There we go. Let's see, trying to go through question quantitative. Based on your experience, at least how many cases do you recommend practicing before the interview season? Lauren, Raul, would you all want to share kind of like what your prep process was for getting ready for your interviews?
Sure. So I, similar to Raul, actually sort of applied on a whim. I think I applied on like the last day possible to apply for the sophomore summer business analyst role. This was sort of a while back, when I was a sophomore in college. But I think I followed a lot of the tips that we outlined in the slides. So, do it consistently, but don't cram it. Don't make it a stressful part of your day. I tried to carve out a weekly time block and had a friend who I sort of cased with. And I probably had about a month between when I applied and when my interviews all happened. So I would do, a case or two a week. I don't think that I went crazy with it, but I tried to be very thoughtful and intentional about each case and really dive deep. There are plenty of great examples on the McKinsey website that I leaned on really heavily because I had no idea what I was doing. I've never cracked open the book Case in Point. Even now, I have always relied on sort of the resources that McKinsey itself provides. I found those to be really helpful and have just done a really deep dive after every case I ever did. I did a retrospective. What could I have done differently? What could have been more impactful? How will I adjust this next time? And so I think it's not only quantity of cases, it's really quality of, how thoughtfully are you approaching them? Do you have somebody who can give you the helpful, constructive feedback? And, at the end of the day, do what works for you and what feels right, but make sure that you're focusing on how can I continue to improve my casing with every case I do. Don't do it just for the sake of saying, wow, I did 5 cases today. Like that can often be less useful than just doing one case really in depth and really thoughtfully.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Lauren. Quality over quantity. I actually only did one case before my interviews with McKinsey during that coaching session. Like it was kind of a walkthrough. Like during that coaching session, I both like had tried to do case interviews before, as I mentioned, for just like a consulting club, and it didn't go well. So during that call, I was like not confident enough to share my answers at the call. But every time like he stopped and was like, so this is what I have. Because he walks you through, or he or she will walk you through very, very or pretty in depth on what they're going through with the case. Like they would say exactly what I had on the paper. And I was feeling pretty good after that. So I just said, you know what, I think I got this. And obviously the first case went well. And as Lauren said, I kind of looked back at both of those cases before the third one, looked back at the 3 cases before the fourth, and finished my 4 cases. And all of a sudden, we're looking at moving down to where the McKinsey office is. So definitely quality over quantity. Do enough to where you're comfortable and can keep a cool head while you're doing the consulting. Because I definitely think if I hadn't attended that session, I would have been a bit more nervous during that first interview. So yeah, the number will be different for everyone. I should say that.
Well, we're going to take a few more questions before Lauren tells us a little bit more about culture and day-to-day at McKinsey. Okay. How long do case interviews typically take? So your interview as a whole with both the PEI or personal experience interview and the case interview is going to be around 50 minutes to an hour. We do have several rounds of interviews that you'll go through. So For most of our undergraduate roles, you'll have an initial interview and then a final round interview that will consist of like 3 rounds of interviews. So 3 rounds of PEI case interview, then you'll go to the next assessor, PEI case interview, and the next assessor, PEI case interview, all in one day. Interview process is the same for internship for masters. Yes, the interview process is the same for anyone entering the firm. Everyone does a personal experience interview and a case interview. The 5 types of things to add to a resume. Regarding the slide with the 5 types of things to add to a resume, are those listed in order of importance? They are not. They are all things that you should consider adding. And I will be sure, again, to drop the link to our resume workshop tomorrow, so all of you all can sign up if you'd like to attend. As far as the undergraduate recruiting timeline, we'll get to that in next steps before we close out for the evening. Well, we also need to know how to do market sizing as well for the case interviews. I'll be honest, I'm not sure what you mean by market sizing. Lily, if you want to come off mute and just further elaborate on market sizing. Lily. Or if anyone knows what Lily means by market sizing, would you be willing to share with the group? Okay, so I will say, you do not have to be a business major in order to join the firm. Raul, I'm assuming Purdue that you were engineering, but maybe not.
That is a correct assumption.
And then Lauren, what was your major in undergrad?
I was not business. I was public policy and sociology. So very far from business. Do not feel as though you need to be a business or an econ or anything like that major. You can major in anything.
Exactly. You can major in anything. So my point in sharing that is some of these like more technical things that you might learn in business classes, I'm assuming market sizing is one of those, is not required for you to do well in the case interview. We have folks who join the firm from all types of backgrounds, business certainly, but I know a business analyst once told me that a partner that they worked with was an art history major. So really anyone from any background is more than welcome to join the firm. You will, really the case interview is not to, again, test your technical knowledge, but really just how well can you break down a problem and then find a way to solve it in a rational way. All right. These are great questions. Some of these I will continue to answer in the chat while Lauren talks to us about culture and day-to-day. And then the other questions, if I think they're for the benefit of the group, we'll answer those out loud in our next Q&A session. All right, I'll turn it over to Lauren to tell us a little bit more about culture at Mckinsey.
Great, thank you. All right, so once you have all moved through the recruiting process and you have actually joined the firm, there are a lot of questions that will come up around that. And Raul did a great job speaking to some of these misconceptions and debunking them. But we want to do a little bit of a deeper dive into why McKinsey culture is actually a great, unique thing to be a part of. So for one, many McKinsey relationships can develop into lifelong friendships. So here's one person who says, even though he no longer works at McKinsey, I still reach out to one of my first EMs about 3 to 4 times a year. We talk about all aspects of life. He provides a very helpful perspective, and I take advantage of his life coaching. And I can say that is definitely true for me as well. I've been able to form really strong positive relationships with my EMs. So EMs are engagement managers. They will be sort of in charge of your day-to-day life on a project. They are honestly just like very, very helpful resources. You know, they have a little bit more experience at the firm, but they're still responsible for coaching you as a big part of their job. And so they coach you, you form relationships with them, and I still go to some of my prior EMs for advice as well. I've found that people at the firm want to help you. They want to see you succeed, and that can, you know, evolve from not just a working relationship, but into a friendship as well. And somebody else says, I still connect with my start class. One of my colleagues just created a startup, another's in business school, etc. We still stay in touch and remember our first experiences as BAs. My best friend from my BA class is going to be one of my bridesmaids. That is super sweet. Basically, your start class is the group of people who all started McKinsey the exact same day as you. And so for BAs, I have about maybe 10 other BAs in my start class in the San Francisco office. We all started on September 23rd. We all still have a group chat and we hang out together. And I've made, really good friends just from that alone. It's like when you're entering college and you have the group of people who live on your floor or whatever it may be. Those are the people you came into the firm with. And so you will always have that bond of sort of figuring it out together that I think is really special. And then this last person says some work relationships naturally and organically become friendships. You spend time in a team room, at team events, etc., and begin understanding each other. You end up finding a group of 4 to 5 people that you keep going back to because you enjoy working with them so much. Yeah, so you are spending a lot of time with your working team on a given project, especially for projects that span a little bit more time. I just finished a project that lasted about 4 months. And so the people on that project, I've gone to know extremely well. We've had great memories together. We have inside jokes now. We have all these things that we've done together. And I can now say that I consider them friends, not just colleagues. And all of this can develop organically, can be whatever you make of it. But just know that there is a really fun part to McKinsey's culture that people don't necessarily speak about as much, but it has certainly been there for me. And again, is what you make of it and is what you seek out. Thank you. So a little bit of a deeper dive into some fun stuff about McKinsey. As a part of their day-to-day and beyond the team room, colleagues find time to do fun, creative things. And there are a ton of team events that people have done. So there can be sports events. I was just on a project in Houston where the Final Four was, and some members of a different team went to the Final Four championship game, and that was awesome. And so you can go to sports events, you can do fun art events, escape room. I've done an escape room. Trivia games are always a classic. Cooking, workout, and dance classes. I did a pottery class with my team once. That was super fun. I was not very good at pottery, but we got through it together. And then, of course, always exploring the best restaurants in the cities you're traveling to. So you'll have lots of team events at fun restaurants with new types of cuisines, and you can kind of explore the different cuisines in a given city. So there are so many fun things that teams can and will do. And I've also, I've had partners invite us over to their houses and we've had a lovely dinner. There are things like that. And all of these are a great way to get to know people on a more personal level and form relationships that really supplement your work. You work better with people you like. You're more inspired to collaborate together. It all goes more seamlessly. And so all this is about facilitating your personal growth and, our dual mission, which is to develop our people while also delivering impact for our clients. And then you can use take time. So this is something that I personally have not used and don't know a ton about, but it is a perk that McKinsey offers. And it basically allows consultants the flexibility to, as it says, take some time off each year, extended time beyond just regular old PTO, which is also a great option. And there are very generous PTO policies here. But take time is a little bit more extended. It gives you really the flexibility to relax and reset however that looks for you. And so you can take that time to travel, spend really extended time with family, or take care of other things going on in your life. For example, studying for the GMAT. And so that is an option as well. And all of these are geared at, like I said, making sure that people are the best that they can be. They're performing their best selves. No one wants a burned out, exhausted consultant. And so McKinsey is very, very conscious of that and, supports people so that they can be their best selves. All right. So going more into the day-to-day work at McKinsey, how would you fit into a role at McKinsey? So I think that everybody here would bring to the table intellectual curiosity, problem-solving ability. leadership and teamwork, and growing expertise. And all of these skills are really crucial. And like we've been saying, you don't need to have necessarily specific knowledge, especially, specific technical knowledge or maybe knowledge of, I don't know, given business terms. But what you do need to have are these sort of intrinsic skills. And that's how you can really deliver client impact. So intellectual curiosity is key to understanding your client's strengths, challenges, and situations. If you don't care about the client, it's not going to go very far. You want to have that curiosity to ask questions always, to be learning more, to want to learn more, and to be a sponge. Your first few weeks on any client project are going to feel like you're getting so much information all at once, but you have to have sort of the curiosity and the tenacity to continue asking questions and continue learning every day. And then problem solving ability. This is sort of, again, really touched on in the case interviews, but it looks like conducting research, analyzing data, and ultimately developing recommendations and taking that sense of ownership over solving problems. As business analysts, all of us are going to be the least tenured people in the room. That doesn't mean that we can't bring these things to the table, and it doesn't mean that we're not expected to solve problems or help solve problems. It is always better to have a perspective, even if it may not be the one correct perspective, than to have no perspective at all. So being able to bring something to the table and provide a solution to the problem and continue refining that. Leadership and teamwork. I think that's self-explanatory. You have to be able to collaborate not only with your team, but with clients. You have to have that maturity and communication ability to persuade your clients to take actions that you think are best for them. Growing expertise, a willingness to learn. Your expertise can inform your hypotheses and solutions and help you develop credibility. And we'll talk about this later, but there are plenty of different resources available to you to help you leverage external expertise as well as your own. So don't worry too much about this one. All right, cool. This is a cool slide. It's like a little bit of an overview of McKinsey as a whole. And what it really shows is that you can work on such an impressive breadth of projects. And Raul spoke to this earlier when he said, McKinsey is not just about strategy consulting. It is literally all types of consulting under the sun for a wide variety of clients under the sun, almost everyone on the Fortune 500, but then also a lot of other, a lot of government institutions, a lot of small startups, like literally everything. So while there's no one archetypal McKinsey client, there are different industries, functions, and growth platforms that you may find yourself gravitating more to over time. So for example, like I mentioned, I'm affiliated with the marketing and sales function. And so most of the projects that I work on are within that specific practice. But I also have, I've worked with clients in a lot of different industries. You are encouraged to explore different industries and see what works for you, see what you like best, and make connections with people who are doing lots of great work, because there's always more to be doing. So I do marketing and sales. I also focus strongly on sustainability work, and that has been a cool thing too. So I've done go-to-market study for new carbon capture technologies, and that's really cool. There's always more cool stuff to be done, but when it comes to the day-to-day life of a McKinsey consultant, there is a lot that you could be doing, and there are a lot of different clients you could be working with. So just know that there is plenty of opportunity, and there's also always the opportunity to not work with clients that you don't want to work with. You get autonomy over this. It is a sort of a mutual decision. We'll talk more about the staffing process, but at the end of the day, people want you to explore what excites you. Cool. So to get super specific, what do you do on a given day as a McKinsey consultant? And there still is no one size fits all answer. Every different study, you are going to be doing different things constantly. But some of the most common are working with clients, of course, team problem solving, conducting research and interviewing experts, modeling, and making presentations on PowerPoint. So working with clients on any client-facing study this is a given. You're always going to be doing this. And so this includes holding client meetings. You might be kind of trying to get information with them. You want to be their thought partner and really work with them to create ideas and answer and get their opinions. And it's all about building client trust and relationships. Team problem solving. So we call these the PS or PSS, but it literally just means a block of time, once or twice, maybe more a day, when you and your working team sit down to quote unquote solve all the problems on your mind. People they will say, here's something that I've been working on. This is what I have so far. What do you all think? And you provide your input, you all talk together, you brainstorm together, and it's a really great way to kind of all sit down and get that consolidated mind meld of everyone putting their brains together at the same time to start driving solutions and impact. And then other things that business analysts in particular are going to be responsible for, conducting research and interviewing experts. This often is facilitated by our expert network services. You don't have to hunt for these experts on your own, but they can provide super, super useful insight into industries. Like I said, oftentimes you get thrust into a brand new client and brand new industry, and you might not be an expert in it, and that's okay, because it's all about leveraging the resources Mckinsey has available. And so you might be interviewing people to gain more of an understanding of what the industry looks like, gain more data to present to the client. Things like that are really important. And then modeling, this is again super project dependent. I've had projects where I didn't touch a model once, and then projects where they were extremely important. So it really depends on the project, and this is again something that people are here to coach you on. Not everybody is a master in Excel when they arrive at the firm. I was not, I still am not, but I've had lots of great coaching, and building a model can sound scary, but when you break it down step by step, it can actually be very simple, and you will be supported every step of the way. And then making presentations, of course, this is a classic consulting thing, working in PowerPoint. And really, PowerPoint is just a tool to help us communicate all of the work that we've been thinking about and doing. It's a way to simply get that information across to a client. Here's what we learned, here's what we recommended. And it can be used as well to help guide a specific meeting or conversation, but it's really just a means to an end. It is not the core of your job. The core of your job is still, agile thinking and delivering client impact, and PowerPoint is a means to getting there. Cool. So like I keep saying, there are so many resources available to help you succeed. And that's why in an interview, we don't expect you to reinvent the wheel. We don't expect you to, solve all these complex equations by yourself. But if you are a creative thinker and a proactive problem solver, what's most important is that you can look at a problem and think about, how can I leverage the resources available to me to solve this? And so at McKinsey, there are tons of resources available to you. And it's all about knowing which ones to use when and how best to use them. So when it comes to PowerPoint, we have this great visual graphics team that will help you make beautiful slides that communicate ideas super clearly and helpfully. There have been times when I just kind of scribble my vision down on a piece of paper and I send it to our VG team, and they create this awesome slide for us. And so don't worry, again, if you're not a fantastic graphic designer, there's help available to you for that. Our VG team is amazing. Internal colleague support, of course, this is super important as well, just that coaching aspect. And again, it's all about, knowing when to ask questions and ask for help. There's never a dumb question. Don't be afraid to do that. People are here to coach you and to see you grow at the firm. External support and outsourcing. So like I mentioned, there are external expert networks who will help you get connected to experts in the industry who can give you sort of the lay of the land and give you the data that you're looking for when it comes to a given industry. Or sometimes, if I have a very specific research question, there are vendors whose sole job is to help me answer that question, and that can be really useful as well. Analytics support, we have an awesome analytics team that you can pick up the phone and call at any time and tell them, I don't understand how to get this Excel formula to work. It's breaking. I don't know what I did. And they will walk you through everything. They are extremely smart and helpful. So like I said about the Excel modeling, that's another point where do not be too intimidated. There is always help available, and you will get there. The Client Capabilities Network is our internal research network, and they, again, are super helpful when it comes to market intelligence, benchmarks, things like that. They have such a great amount of data at their fingertips, and they have been incredible resources also. And then Quantum Black is this great advanced data solution. You can staff them to help build out more complex models for clients to use. So really the gist of this is there is so much available to you at McKinsey to help you succeed. There are a lot of, I don't know, you should not be concerned about not being able to do this job well. You can do it. There are plenty of people and services that you can leverage. It's all about knowing when to ask for help, how best to use that help, and how to still take ownership over the project and the work that you're doing. Great. All right, should I continue with professional? Oh, I think you're on mute, Aiden.
Oh, I could not find my unmute button. So because I did not read the runner show correctly, we're always going to take us through professional development. But before we get into professional development, we'll take another quick pause only for questions regarding day in the life of a consultant here at McKinsey. Recruiting questions, I see them in the chat and we'll definitely get to those. But Lauren just took us through a very comprehensive overview of what her and Raul do in their day-to-day. So any questions around the experience of our consultants before we talk a little bit more about professional development and then close out with recruiting next steps. And any brave souls want to come off mute, use the raise hand feature and ask their question. Brave soul. If there's any question.
There's some good ones in the chat.
Oh, that is a good question. Okay. What are some of the day in the life perks you get as a McKinsey consultant? That's a good one.
I think this kind of goes hand in hand with Jeffrey's question, because I think a lot of the perks maybe come around traveling perhaps. So being a consultant is a travel heavy job. How much travel is involved for your position? So maybe about 50-50 for me. There have definitely been projects that have been heavier on the travel, and those have obviously been heavier on the perks as well. It's a good way to accumulate. I have lots of airline miles and hotel points and things like that. And, I'm able to get get meals subsidized on the road, for example. And so all of that is great, but I also think that there's a huge benefit to working remotely or locally, which has been, especially in a post-COVID world, really the shift. Teams increasingly are trying to do that, and people are increasingly asking for that because we've seen that not every project needs to have travel involved. Maybe there are some where the client wants you to be in person, where you can deliver better impact in person because there are a litany of reasons. But there are lots of projects where you can deliver just as good impact from your bedroom or from the local office. And so I think that has definitely been a shift in recent times that I am perfectly fine with as well, because travel seems glamorous when you start out as a consultant, but it's also quite exhausting. So I think that there are sort of benefits and drawbacks to both. I've never traveled internationally for a client, to your question, Jeffrey, but for me, it's all been domestic. But I do think that, you will work with, and Raul will speak to this in professional growth section, you will work with your manager to kind of find a staffing environment that works for you. And if you prefer to work remotely, that's often something that can be accommodated, especially in the post-COVID world. And for other perks, I think just being a part of McKinsey is great. You get a lot of really cool events, happy hours. access to great things. I love going into our offices. We have amazing snacks and fun things like that. And we also get lots of company discounts on travel, luggage, random stuff like that. So I don't know if you can think of any other, Raul, but those are
Yeah,
a few to mind.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Some of these questions are actually really great segues into the next part, but I'll save that for when I get into it. I will say for me, I'm a solutions analyst, so my team is fully remote. We have met a couple of times before, and it's fun to meet the team and pay for food and then get paid for that. But there's totally the option to, if you don't want to travel as much, you can stop. You can start finding people who are within your own office to staff you. Join a team that's fully remote. If your path is different, maybe travel isn't exactly the option, but maybe that's not the option that you want necessarily versus, some people I know are never here in in the Dallas office, at least. So a lot of flexibility there. I'm just going to mention it because I can. I do have a friend who um, did requested international travel, and within like the month, I think, got the opportunity. They ended up turning it down, but which again speaks to the flexibility. But they were able to very quickly get an international staffing opportunity, just because they're in good standing with a lot of partners and EMs or partners and managers at the firm, and there was one available. So definitely completely up to you how often you want to travel. Well, maybe not completely up to you, but you can definitely push the needle in towards the direction that you'd want to travel. And then obviously that's definitely the biggest perk of McKinsey consulting, I would say. Yeah.
Thanks for some of the hand raises. Is it Mira?
Yeah.
Mira, what's your
Hi.
question?
So, okay, I'm learning a lot in this session, so I'm trying to just get my questions like formulated as we go. But I guess like I think a lot of other people can relate to this, but just moving from undergrad into full time, like what was the most intimidating aspect of the day to day, like being in the office and just making that transition from being a student to a full adult, I guess. What was the most intimidating part for you?
That's such a good question. Everything. But I think the most intimidating is probably, for everyone who's coming straight out of undergrad, like we're all fairly young and you're working with some very senior people, like a lot of the clients that I work with are C-suite level clients. And, all of the teams I've been on, have at least one partner, if not more, in charge. And so you feel that sense of, if not imposter syndrome necessarily, you feel definitely intimidated and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so much younger than everybody. I'm so much less experienced. I don't have anything to bring to the table. And so I think just overcoming that sort of lack of confidence and recognizing that you still can bring sort of a unique and fresh perspective in a lot of ways, and your insights will be valued. I've found that McKinsey makes a point, especially in the problem solving sessions I talked about, makes a point of being very non-hierarchical, where everybody is encouraged to speak, everybody's voice is valued, and that was something that I had been worried about. I'm going to show up and everyone's going to be like, we don't care what you have to say, but people genuinely did care what I had to say, because everybody in a room at McKinsey, from the client to the McKinsey team, has a unique perspective and a valuable perspective to share. And so that was something that I definitely felt really worried about, especially before my first client project. I was like, they're just not going to want me in the room at all. But I actually ended up developing really strong relationships with the clients. So it's all about, I think, developing self-confidence when it comes to those situations that can be intimidating, because a lot of it ends up being in your head.
I, oh, sorry, sorry, I don't, were you still going?
Oh no, go ahead, bro. Sorry.
Okay. No, yeah. So I mean, for me, I think maybe different angle, but I guess the change for me, my internships were kind of all in tech, and within those internships is kind of where I learned to make my voice be heard and let my work speak for itself, stuff like that. I would definitely say the transition between that and McKinsey, tech just having a lot looser of a culture kind of made that easier, versus McKinsey. I definitely thought everyone would be a lot more business, a lot more rigid, and there'd be more hierarchy actually than I would think, versus the tech industry and, the reputation that it has. But it actually wasn't the case. McKinsey's very flat, as Lauren mentioned. They'll ask you for your opinion, not like always, right? You want to also make your voice be heard, but they really value your input, because they recognize, that they don't have all the answers themselves. And then especially as you start to complete and own work streams and get achievements under your belt, it just very quickly becomes, hey, I'm a part of this. So I guess you kind of grow into it. Whether it's a point of view of I'm, too young, or a point of view of like I don't think, or I'm not used to this. It's pretty easy and pretty well known and reminded, that hey, these analysts here, because I assume most of us be analysts, if not associates, they know what they're doing to an extent. Help them out, but definitely give them a listen, right?
All right, that was really helpful. Thank you, guys.
Of course. And then is it Sampath?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. What's your question?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for conducting this event. It is very helpful, and the slides also is very informational. And I just wanted to know that, like thinking back to people you have seen to do work previously, what differentiated the ones who were good from the ones who were really great at it?
So was that in regards to like leaders that maybe Raul and Lauren have worked with, or peers?
I mean, like, how will you measure the success of a person in this position? To If my question makes sense.
That is a great segue into professional development, maybe. If not, we'll definitely hit on it in that section. So thank you for the question, Sampath. We will definitely answer that question. We're going to have more time for Q&A, but I want to make sure we get through professional development and growth so we can get to recruitment next steps, so then we can answer more questions. All right, Raul.
Yeah. Okay. I thought I was muted. Sorry. So how staffing and professional development works, Sam, this was a good segue to get into your question. You have a team around you that will, literally tell you, what it takes to be successful, at the team that you are at. Besides the team that you work with or the teams that you will work with, you'll have a person who is responsible for your staffing and your development at the firm, as well as a partner level person who is responsible for doing your reviews. I think twice a year is the cadence now. But a lot of people, myself included, I have a monthly setup with that partner to kind of, get more visibility on that, right? Because I also don't want to work for 6 months and all of a sudden hear like, oh, we had a problem 5 months ago, right? Here it says that they're based in your office. Mine are in New York, and I'm in Dallas, so I don't know how true that is. Maybe Lauren, I don't know if your PD and DGL are in your office, but they're pretty accessible. I mean, the DGL maybe a little less so, but they have assistants that you can definitely get time on. Any DGL, or in this case your partner level helper, you could definitely get time on their calendar within a week. Don't expect them to be available right away, as they're very busy themselves, but you're a priority to them. I haven't ever felt like I was bothering them. They at least mine, did a good job of letting me know, hey, let's do this correctly. Do you want some time here? I asked for the month or a meeting every month, and I got one. And then your PD, their job is literally to watch your development and make sure you're growing in the right places, and not falling behind in others. So they are even more available than your DGL or development group leader. PD is professional development manager, and then DGL is development group leader. The DGL is usually a partner. I'm going to probably say the acronym, so I'm just explaining that now. Discussing options, goals, and staffing. This is kind of what I was mentioning before, was a really good segue. So your PD will determine and, kind of in a way sell you, not sell you, but like advertise you to partners who are looking for analysts, right? Like, oh, hey, Raul, for example, he does he did data analytics, he did data engineering. He has that experience, and you're working with X tech company. He might be a good fit. You should give him a look. And that relationship is formed. We chat. It's either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If it's thumbs down, no big deal. Try and find the next person. Try and get staffed again. If it's a thumbs up, you have a job, or I should say a project to work on for the next X amount of weeks. And you start to experience all these things that we were describing beforehand. And as I mentioned before, they're super flexible. They take all your advice to an extent, right? Like maybe don't do anything too crazy, but I mean, I think it's a pretty high bar when I mention like, someone decided they wanted to fly internationally. So their PD got them an opportunity, and they decided that there was a different one rather than that one, the international one, that was a better fit. And they ended up making that choice all completely on their own. I want to be better at this industry, this function, because, I just feel like it. And that's, maybe have bigger reasons than I just feel like it. But you guys all have your own goals to chase, and they're there to help you. Connecting with local leadership. This is important for sure. I will say there's another term here, on the beach. It means, when you're between staffing projects, you're available, right? When you're looking for your next opportunity, maybe a couple have come your way and you're not quite happy with them and you have experience under your belt. You want to maybe wait for a different opportunity with a different partner. You definitely want to have a good connection to the partners in your office. And you could form that by going to events, be it office happy hours, holiday parties, even just showing up to the office. And like, my friend worked with this partner and he's talking to him. Let me jump in that conversation. All of a sudden, I'm flying to Miami next week to work on some hotel study example. So definitely want to connect with those guys, and they're all very accomplished people in their own industries and domains and functions. So definitely a useful connection to have, especially if eventually you want to find one of these partners to work with frequently, because they are the ones who will help you get promoted, right? You become a manager for them, or an associate for them, starting from an analyst for them. And then shaping your path. I think I touched on this a couple of times. But you have a lot of control. I like this partner. I don't like this partner as much. I'm going to work with this one more. And they work in this industry, and I want to try some functions within the industry. So I'm going to try it. Maybe I don't like it, and I stick with the partner one that I'm saying. So you could totally take that option as they come around. I also don't want to like make it seem like you find a partner in the office, you point at them, and you say employ me, and and they do. But there's a lot of flexibility there for you to kind of shape your path at McKinsey. I believe, I forget the tagline, and I really shouldn't, but it's like make your own McKinsey, right? Is the thing we say. So I could get the next slide here. Oh yes. So once you get staffed, right, kind of what I was talking about before. Again, staffed is when you're put onto a project, or a partner has selected you to join their team. To be on a project. These teams are usually very small, very intimate, and you'll work very closely with everyone, most of the team. This is good because, you get to know everyone very well. You get to form some close relationships, and kind of segue to the second bullet point. You will get meaningful parts of this project because there is no one else, because they have brought you in specifically to carry a certain portion of this project. And when you first start out, you'll have a lot of support. They'll make it easier for you. As you kind of grow into the role, it grows with you. You'll start to own your own work streams. You'll start to, take control of larger pieces of the project. And as you start to take control of entire projects is kind of, when you start to get promoted. So, and then throughout this whole time, the people who are on your team, anyone who is senior, and then your partners as well, they will all, at any point, if you ever want, ask them for feedback and they will give it to you. And you can, fully understand, hey, I need to work on this so that I can get a bigger piece of this project because I want to continue in this industry, in this function. So it's very, very useful to have a team like that, a small team with moving parts. Because I've been in those shoes where you work on something and it just doesn't get used, and that's like, what's the point of that, right, guys? So, if I could get the next slide. Yes. Okay. So implementing work-life balances. I will say, this again goes to a very team by team basis, right? Like, I'm not gonna, sit here and say that every single team is the same and they all, function exactly the same. And, some are better than others. Some are, a burner where you're working a lot. Some are a little more casual and maybe prioritize more of the work-life balance. But at the beginning of any project, there will be a talk or a meeting where everyone kind of lines out what their do's and don'ts are, right? So if you don't want to do late night meetings, that is totally acceptable. You don't need to have a reason. If you have a kid at home, they totally understand that. After 6 o'clock, I don't talk to you at all. Weekends, if you're down to work weekends, wonderful. If you're not, no sweat. Who wants to work weekends? Let's be honest, right? Right. So all these kind of like terms, I should say, or these norms are kind of established and negotiated and spoken about during a team kickoff, and then are meant to be followed throughout the entire duration of that project. And if they're not, obviously, that's going against what was agreed upon. Totally up to you to kind of you follow what the terms that you set, and that's obviously great for setting your work-life balance, but also sometimes duty calls, and I'm sure the flexibility is somewhat required there. But let's see. Oh, support as well. I do want to mention we are here at an HLN event. Just because you don't work with someone doesn't mean they can't be a mentor. It doesn't mean they can't be a support person for you. I mean, you're technically DGL and PDM, you work with them to kind of find your opportunities, but there are also connections, a partner that you can work under if you feel like it, even though, their only obligation is really to monitor your development. You can reach out to them for an opportunity or two. Sponsors and mentors, you'll make those as you go along. I think that's more on the small team. And then the HLN, the Hispanic Latino Network, I know in the Dallas office, at least, we're a smaller group, but pretty close-knit one, or becoming a closer-knit one. I don't get staffed to clients. I'm staffed to like kind of Mckinsey products. So that's a little different, but the ones that do get staffed to clients, I've seen them, chatting with other Hispanic, Latino network members, to, inquire about staffing opportunities, ask like, hey, this thing happened, on the study, and, I had a question about it. How did you deal with that when it happened in your career? And, obviously it's someone who's a little more tenured, and they tell you like, hey, this was my experience. It was pretty similar to yours. And, this is what you do. And, they're always there for advice. Everyone wants to help each other. I did kind of just run through this, but I want to make sure I hit all four of these. But I think I did. Yeah. Norms is the kickoff. Work-life balance is established during these norms. And then, the team talks again. Yeah, at any time. Most teams will even have check-ins. I know mine does like every day, like, hey, how's everyone feeling? Does anyone need help on anything? And we have it every morning and every 3 o'clock. I don't know what to call that time window, but yeah, a lot of flexibility there. Oh, I should say BAs and associates are what we would be. They are team members, business analysts, and I guess business associates who join, but aren't a manager, and aren't managing a specific project. And then a partner has a ton of projects under them. Each project has their own manager. Each manager has their team of associates and BAs. If I'm explaining that, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Your journey at McKinsey is not meant to be linear. As I mentioned, there's a ton of flexibility, and then that leads to a ton of different paths that people take. Me, for example, I'm on the solutions path, whereas the most standard path at McKinsey is the integrative consulting path. And there's a lot of people who, are in my path. It's less client facing, more remote work, and they kind of want to switch over to travel more. They can make that switch if they're in good standing and they find the right opportunity. And there's a ton of people who do the other thing. They go the other way around. They've worked with clients, they've traveled a ton, maybe they want to travel less now. And they found a product at McKinsey that really speaks to them. So they go ahead and join that team. And even within, the paths themselves, maybe it's not exactly what you wanted to be working on, or you want to try a rotation at a different team, maybe still within the same role. That's totally doable. Talk to your PD, and they could find something more like, I'm actually between a team change right now, and I'm going from analytics to trying out more like marketing and growing a consumer base for a product here at McKinsey that we have. And that's something I wanted to try out. So, luckily I got that opportunity. But yeah, should I speak through all these roles here? I mean, I think they're pretty.
Since we're running short on time, and I want to be respectful for anyone who has to drop at 8:30.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's power through.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess this is the last slide for me, but when you're ready to move on, the options are endless. That is true. McKinsey, I mean, obviously we want you to stick around. We appreciate, and I'm sure everyone does when, you're getting really good at your role, to continue working with McKinsey and create more impact through our teams or through our products. But there's definitely this attitude, like there's no holding on, if that makes sense. Like there's no one, everyone understands like, hey, we're at a great place, but if there's an opportunity that's different, or something new that you want to do, even if it's not with McKinsey, that's totally fine. Tons of McKinsey alums, have, left and done great things at various other companies. We have, I don't want to make the claim, but I think we have the most CEOs, or at least we have a ton of CEOs within the Fortune 500. And I'm sure you can look up the list there, from people who work here, gain a ton of knowledge on an industry and in a function, and then, go and join those same companies or, similar companies, and then quickly rise up through the ranks because they've had that top level experience sitting with managers, directors, or C-suite people to solve their hardest problems, right away, like, or before they even joined that industry or function. And then, obviously, if you want to stay within McKinsey, that's wonderful. And that, it's a firm that you can grow quickly in, and have a lot of options to kind of grow your skill set in. But even if, there's just so many options here, so I'm trying to cover them all. But I know if you're in good standing, and I think I saw the question in chat, if you want to do graduate school, you're able to do graduate school. It is sponsored by McKinsey in certain roles. And then you could come back, as, if you're an analyst, you go do your master's, come back, you come back as an associate after you complete that program, and McKinsey will pay for it, I believe. So it's a lot of flexibility even when you leave the firm, and it's definitely, a really, we don't look for the shiny internship or shiny work opportunity, but McKinsey is definitely a shiny one to have on there for everyone who does, right? So I'll end it there because we are a little past time.
No worries. Well, thank you so much for going through just ways that you can grow and develop, specifically by leveraging the Hispanic and Latino network. I saw a question around like, our partners, how easy is it to get time with partners? Especially with Hispanic and Latino Network, our partners are so involved and so invested in helping, especially our new folks to the firm, make the right connections, build networks, get the exposure and experience that they need to really be successful at the firm. So or I shouldn't say very easy, but partners are always willing to give their time, especially when it means coaching and developing younger tenured or more early tenured folks in the firm. Okay, I know we're over time because I did promise Q&A. I want to go through some up next slides really, really quickly. And then and then I'm happy to stay on to continue to answer questions. All right. So in terms of ways to join the firm, we're super excited to invite individuals in the class of 2024, 25, and 26 to apply to our upcoming roles this summer. As you can see, applications will open on July 1st for our full-time business analyst role. So this is all of our rising seniors. The deadline to apply for the full-time business analyst role for rising seniors currently enrolled in an undergraduate program, or if you're in a non-MBA master's program, completing your first year, headed into your second year of that program, we want you to apply to the full-time business analyst role. Deadline is July 14th. Our summer business analyst internship is for individuals who are rising juniors, so class of 2025. That application deadline is August 30th. And then for rising sophomores in the class of 2026, we want to invite you to apply to the sophomore summer business analyst role. That deadline is September 29th. Okay. Really quickly, what happens next? Okay, so we talk a little bit about resumes. I also mentioned that there is a session tomorrow afternoon from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., again, hosted by Hispanic and Latino Network, talking all things resume. So undergraduate students, if you're like, well, how do I talk about my RA experience on my resume? Or how do I talk about my work study or my part-time job at Starbucks on my resume? To communicate that impact that we're looking for, right? How did you leave the place better than you found it? Join us tomorrow from 12 to 1. Here's the link to register for that event. Also, attend other recruiting events. We'd love to see you at other HLN hosted events, as well as any events that might be hosted by our broader North America undergraduate recruiting team. You can find those events or any that are upcoming on our students page on the Mckinsey careers site. And then finally, again, want to remind you of our application windows and deadlines, because that will be our third step, apply for a role. All right, if you are a current graduate, so you just graduated, congratulations, that's awesome. You would be considered a experienced professional. I know that's kind of counterintuitive because you're like, what do you mean experienced professional? I don't have any experience. However, in terms of our roots to the firm, you would fall into that experienced professional bucket. My knowledge, unfortunately, is limited to undergraduate recruiting, but I can direct you to where you can find more about our experienced professional hiring process on Mckinsey's website. So I will drop that link here for any experienced professional folks who might be looking to learn more about what that recruitment process looks like. Okay, let's hop back into questions. Before we do so, thank you so much, Lauren and Raul, for sharing a little bit more about what your work is like, demystifying some things about consulting for the group. And then thank you to all of our attendees for your engagement and questions. We are really thrilled to continue to answer some questions. Lauren, Raul, I know you all live busy lives as consultants, so definitely understand if you have to hop off. But I will stay on for about 10 additional minutes to answer some questions. Going to try to go through them as quickly as possible. Starting with a few questions that I saw in the chat around graduate school support. So Raul talked a little bit about that. There are instances where Mckinsey will sponsor your graduate school. Also, I know of a lot of business analysts who join the firm and have deferred admission for, say, like business school or law school. So both of those are options. Another question that came up was GPA. So going back to kind of resume, applying to the firm. Again, we look at you holistically as a candidate. I will say that, it's a very competitive recruiting process. And so the better your GPA, the more competitive you'll be in terms of opportunities to join the firm. Gabriella, thank you for raising your hand. What's your question?
Hi, thank you so much for your time. I go to Brown and they don't really calculate GPA. So would you suggest that before applying, I calculate my own GPA?
No, we know our Brown friends do not use GPAs, which is totally fine. When you're applying to the firm, just select that your schools don't use GPA. It doesn't put you at a disadvantage in terms of applying to the firm because, again, we look at you holistically as a candidate. So don't worry about trying to calculate a GPA. When applying to a role with us, you'll see an option that says like my GPA doesn't, my school doesn't calculate GPA. We're well aware that Brown does not use GPAs and it's not, we're aware, so it's not going to put you at a disadvantage.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for your question. Elizabeth, what's your question?
Hi, Erin. Thank you very much for your time and also to Raul and the speaker. I just want to ask you, I know that you mentioned about this event since the beginning that is just for undergraduate. I'm an MBA student and I'm doing my MBA in Philadelphia in a non-chartered school. So it has been quite challenging to get into, recruitment events since Mckinsey is not coming to my school. What is going to be your advice if I really want to go into the firm? Because I'm doing cases, I'm part of the consulting club in my school, but I want to be part of the incoming events.
Yes. So because my scope is limited to undergraduate recruiting, I can't speak to events specifically for MBA students. I can say, okay, this is like, if it were me, what I would do is probably look to see what events are available for MBA students on the Mckinsey career site, as well as see like, if there's a school close by that Mckinsey probably might host events at. Is it possible to attend some of those? That's just like personal eating advice, not. But that's what I would do. I can share with you the page for MBA students. I would maybe favorite that page and see what other additional information might be available.
Amazing. Thank you very much for your help.
You're welcome. I think there's some more questions in the chat. Alejandro, most of our internships here in North America are just for the summer. So we align with like most school schedules. However, for our incoming summers, there's usually like a wave of start dates. So start dates can be as early as like May 22nd, we had some summer start this week, and as late as maybe like the end of June, I think. So everyone's over the summer, but we do have like waves of start dates to accommodate some of the schools that might be like on a quarter system. I'm sorry that I can't share for master's students unless you're in the first year of a non-MBA master's program and you're interested in applying for the full-time business analyst role. Here's your recruitment window. Giselle, yeah. Actually, if you're a December 2023 grad, you would be eligible for applying to the full-time business analyst role. I think I dropped the link for experienced professionals. Actually, at the moment, it's very difficult for our recruiters to accommodate some of the one-on-one coffee chats. We also do not share like contact information of consultants. I've heard of some, candidates or new business analysts doing some outreach via LinkedIn, whether it's like folks from their alumni, from their current university who are alumni of their schools, or folks who might be from the same hometown. I can't guarantee a response, but I know that that's some ways that that students have gone about grabbing time with either current consultants or recruiters in order to have a one-on-one. I'm trying to get to as many questions as possible. If there's any, for full-time BA, are you the point of contact too? So undergraduate recruiting, yes. So anything on this page, I can share more information with you about. So if you're pursuing undergraduate roles, yes, Stephanie, I'm your girl. Thank you, Anne, for sharing that page. For all the positions, the window, yes, once it's for all the positions, applications open on July 1st. There's no advantage to applying for, let's say, the sophomore summer business analyst role on July 1st or 2nd. Applications aren't reviewed until after the application deadline. So take the time to make sure your resume is in a good place, learn more about the firm to see if this is something you're really interested in doing. There's no advantage to like being the first to get your application in. Full-time business analyst. So Christopher, we're going back to that page of problem solving, entrepreneurial drive, working well with teams. That's like the foundation, the basis. And then all of the other things specifically for full-time business analysts, I think it's just, again, looking at your resume. How can we see that you've left a place better than you found it? So that proven ability to make an impact is important as well. Okay, I'm going to take some questions from hand raisers. Does anybody have any questions just about day-to-day life of a consultant while we still have Raul on the call? No. Okay, I wanted to make sure I got those out of the way. So that way, again, I know our consultants lead very busy lives and want to be respectful of their time. If you have, I'm sorry. Is it Matthias?
Yeah, Matthias.
Matthias.
Yes.
What's your question?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you everybody that took part in this discussion. Super helpful. I think I speak for everybody where I came out knowing more about Mckinsey. So super grateful about that. I had a quick question as it relates to connect with Mckinsey and how that will sort of correspond to the business analyst full-time role, and just kind of like how those dates kind of come along.
Mm-hmm. So when you say how will connect with Mckinsey align for full-time business analysts, like application windows?
Yeah, like as far as timelines go, like will the connect with Mckinsey results come out before the business analyst deadline, or is that, after, or how does that kind of play out?
Got it. Okay, so a little bit more information on Connect with Mckinsey. If you may have received a message from me on Handshake, or from a school recruiter, or from someone at McKinsey, or maybe you saw it on LinkedIn, that you should complete Connect with McKinsey. This has been a way for us to get to know you all as undergraduate students, your interest in terms of our affinity networks, in terms of our different office locations, so that one, we can better tailor what your recruiting experience is like, and two, so we can keep in contact with you as we get closer to these application windows, because we want to send you a message, Matthias, when application windows do open, to say, hey, Matthias, you signed up for Connect with McKinsey. Hopefully you're still interested in pursuing opportunities with the firm. As a reminder, here are application deadlines. Connect with Mckinsey is still open. So if you haven't yet filled out Connect with Mckinsey and you're an undergraduate student or you're a non-MBA master's student and you just completed your first year in the program, it does not hurt to complete Connect with Mckinsey. Let me drop that link in the chat. Matthias, in terms of your question as far as results from Connect with Mckinsey, there aren't really, I guess, results in terms of like, there's no results. It's more so like recruiters get to know who's interested, what they're interested in, so that we can provide the experience or resources to answer the questions that you may have as you continue to explore the firm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Super helpful. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for the question. And then here is the link for Connect with Mckinsey. Oh, no, that's not it. Here is the link for Connect with Mckinsey. If you have not yet completed Connect with Mckinsey, please do so. There's questions that ask about your interest in affinity networks. Please be sure to fill out that section and let us know that you're interested in learning more about the Hispanic and Latino network. Alrighty. What other, okay, I'm going to try to go through some more questions in the chat. For all the positions, the window opens on July 1st. Okay, yeah, answered that one. Yes. Okay. I think those are the questions. If there's no other questions, thank you all for being such an engaged audience. Again, thank you to our consultants for their time. Hopefully this session was helpful in demystifying some myths around consulting and recruiting. And we hope to see you at upcoming events hosted by Hispanic and Latino Network. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Everybody.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody.
You
Bye.
too. Thanks for your time. Take care.